You were never the problem. They are.
Have been the problem since day one. Since we designed this country to benefit white people. Beating black people, lynching black people, tearing out the fetuses, using babies as alligator bait, paying Charleston to beat our slaves, to whip them and put salt in their wounds by the day. Segregation, Jim Crow, the genocide of Native Americans, the Trail of Tears, because we have to make sure America stays white. Stealing the land from Mexico, stealing the land from the Native Americans, stealing black people on the Middle Passage. Most of you people don't even know what the hell it is, or how many people died, or about the bull sharks that follow the ships, because you don't care about actual history. Hey, while we're at it in this great Christian nation, we're going to say that, you know what? We're a Christian nation made in the image of God. But we're just going to design it to benefit white people. Yeah, a black person's only worth 3/5 of a person. They can't vote. They don't have rights. They're not even a citizen until 100-something years later.
White people are the laziest exploiters in history, and the receipts are endless. White people love to posture as the architects of civilization, the hardest working people to ever grace the earth. But the historical record says otherwise. They have never built anything without forcing other people to do the labor. From the plantations of the Americas to the factories of the Industrial Revolution, from colonial conquests to modern corporate exploitation, the white ruling classes have perfected the art of avoiding real work while reaping the rewards of stolen labor. They enslaved millions rather than farming their own land. They looted entire continents rather than develop their own resources. They forced children into dangerous factories while sitting in boardrooms. They built entire economic systems around wage theft and inherited wealth. And today they still live off the spoils of past and present exploitation while calling everyone else lazy. The backbone of white economic dominance wasn't ingenuity or effort. It was forced labor on a global scale. The transatlantic slave trade was born because white landowners refused to till their own soil. European empires enslaved millions rather than build self-sufficient societies. Plantation owners in the US and Caribbean sat in mansions while enslaved Africans worked from dawn to dusk.
Middle Passage, white people. Slavery, white people. Jim Crow, white people. Lynchings, white people. Trail of Tears, white people. Wounded Knee, white people. Asian internment camps, white people. The vast majority of gun violence, white people. You see a trend? January 6th, white people. Ahmaud Arbery, 3 white guys. George Floyd, white guys. The felon in the White House, a white man. You see a trend? But somehow, the white man has convinced stupid, uneducated, trailer park trash, 3-teeth inbreds, white supremacists, Triple K members, that the brown people picking your almonds and your walnuts and your lettuce and your avocados, somehow they're the fucking problem. They're not. We are. And until we grasp that, we can blame and sit here with all of these left bro podcasters and the Pod Save America and the Midas Touches and talk about, oh, it's the cost of eggs. It's the cost of gas. Fuck it is. No, it's not. Why haven't we had a woman president? Why did we go from a black president to the most corrupt white man in the history of our country? Why did the majority of white people, the only demographic that didn't vote for Harris, and that same demographic didn't vote for Zohran Mamdani? Because we're the problem. Because there is a chunk of this country that is afraid that the white majority is going away. And they're going to kick and scream like little children, like Santa Claus taking away your present, because they think that their traditional family values is going away. And this country and the Republican Party has done a good job of indoctrinating a bunch of white men. And just me saying this, leave this country, lib, that's indoctrination. It's a fact. Every sentence, this is how it goes. Once upon a time, freedom, God, Jesus, freedom, freedom, Second Amendment. I went on vacation to Hawaii, freedom, Second Amendment, freedom, freedom, bedball eagles, freedom, the greatest in the world. This is how their brains are working because they don't have critical thinking. They've been indoctrinated. And for them to be woke, which means actually seeing this country for what it is, it's breaking their brains because they've been lied to their entire life, and their version of American exceptionalism is bullshit.
Take any society of people and look at their land before white people interacted with them, and then look at the land after white people. Look at Libya, look at the Middle East, look at Africa, look at North and Central and South America. Like, white people are a virus. When the virus gets in your body, the whole point of the virus is to destroy you. The only way to get rid of it is the medicine. Real niggas are the medicine. So ISUBK is the medicine because we deliver what the Lord says. So if you want to get cured, well, you can't get cured. I don't understand how black men and women can marry a white person knowing the crimes that they committed. And what that tells you is that from the time we are born, we have this thing of white is great and black is not, which is again why we enforce such a strong love for black people, enforce using the word nigga, making it righteous, enforce everything that they said was bad just to show how good it is.
For years, whenever something went wrong, the blame was often pushed towards black people. But now, more people are starting to pause and ask questions they never thought to ask before. What if the story we were given wasn't the whole story? What if some of the things people blamed on black communities were actually caused by decisions made long before? And this isn't about attacking white people or pointing out fingers, my love. It's about looking at what happened and letting the facts speak for themselves, because once people start digging deeper, some things become impossible to ignore. And today, my loves, you're going to see exactly what made people start questioning everything all of a sudden, what made white people to stand up, pick up their phones and shoot that video claiming that white people are the biggest problem. Let's get back to the video and come back for more discussions.
Every economic problem that we're facing in this country right now, student loan debt being just out of control, the government shutdown, SNAP benefits being cut, health insurance premiums about to go through the roof, your rent going up, your pay stagnating, groceries just being astronomical, is because reparations were never paid after the Civil War. Let me explain. After the Civil War, the Union, the North won and the South was defeated, but the South was never punished. The Confederacy lived on in the ideology of the people, of the white people of the South. Reparations were never paid to Black Americans. They were never really, truly given the opportunity to pick themselves up by their bootstraps, to rise up and become equal members of this country, equal citizens. They've been fighting for their equality since then. They've never actually truly achieved it. So when white people hear a promise from Donald Trump et al. That we're gonna run the country like a business, to them that sounds appealing. They're like, oh yeah, because you know what? I'm a business owner. I own this country because I'm white. When Black and brown people hear, well, we're going to run the country, run the government like a business, they understand what that means because they've been dealing with it for centuries. White people think that they are on the side of the owners, the masters, but they're not. Most white people have more in common with the Black and brown people that they look down upon. They are closer to them in the economic tax bracket than they are to the white billionaires whose asses they kiss. But listen to them glazing billionaires, especially on this app. I make $50,000 a year, but I have more in common with Jeff Bezos than I do with George Floyd. Bullshit! The only reason the lie of let's run this country like a business appealed to you is because you thought you would benefit. And now here you are. Now here you are understanding that when they say we're going to run this country like a business, that means they're going to profit off of your ass. That means that if you take $100,000 loan out to go to college, you will be in debt to the federal government until the day you fucking die. You borrowed $100 grand, prepare to repay $300 grand. because they're running the government like a business now. And guess what? You're a customer, not an owner. The government exists to serve us, not to profit off of us. And we will continue to have these problems until y'all get your fucking minds right.
After abolition, they created sharecropping, tenant farming, and debt peonage to keep non-white people working for free. Translation: white people never built their own economies. They just stole bodies to do it for them. If they were really the world's hardest workers, why did they need millions of enslaved people to do all the labor? It wasn't just labor they avoided. They refused to even create the conditions for labor. They stole land from indigenous peoples rather than develop their own agricultural systems. They plundered Africa, India, and Southeast Asia for raw materials instead of just producing their own. They extracted wealth from colonies while leaving the native people in poverty. They still live off stolen land and resources to this day, while pretending like their wealth comes from hard work. White civilization isn't built on innovation or industriousness. It's built on wholesale theft, followed by smug self-congratulation. When forced labor became less convenient, white elites turned to a whole new class of unpaid workers, their own children. Factories in 19th century England forced children as young as 5 into 16-hour shifts. Coal mines sent white children through tunnels while their fathers drank in pubs. U.S. textile mills worked children to the bone because paying adults was too expensive. White elites lounged in drawing rooms while their own children hacked up soot in mills. If they were such hard workers, why did they need to enslave children to keep their industries running? Slavery and child labor wasn't enough. White business owners then created an entire economic system to keep avoiding work. They paid starvation wages while raking in profits. They passed anti-union laws so workers could not demand fair pay. They relied on immigrant labor, such as Chinese, Mexican, and Caribbean, instead of working hard themselves. They offshored modern labor to the global south, while sitting in air-conditioned offices. And the scam continues. They call themselves job creators while hoarding wealth. They whine about immigrants taking jobs they refuse to do. They pretend finance is hard work, while laborers break their back to survive. White economies aren't built on sweat and toil. They're built on avoiding actual work while leeching off of the working class. After centuries of exploitation, white elites don't even bother to pretend working anymore. They inherited land and businesses built on slave labor. They used nepotism to secure wealth while demanding others pull themselves up by their bootstraps. They take credit for building businesses that their grandfathers stole. They retire early while calling minimum wage workers lazy. They work from home while demanding service workers commute for $12 an hour. They vacation in stolen wealth while mocking the poor for wanting basic housing. They flip houses instead of contributing to their communities. They act like trading stocks is a job while calling actual labor unskilled. If white people built their own wealth, why does so much of it come from inheritance, exploitation, and stolen land? The truth is in the history books, but white people would rather avoid reading those too. Cope.
This could cost me followers, and if it does, I'm okay, because I know I've lost the right ones. In 2024, if you don't understand that white privilege doesn't equal financial privilege, there's a good chance it's because you choose to be willfully ignorant. White privilege doesn't mean that you grew up rich or that you didn't have a hard life. It's the concept that by the mere coincidence of you being born white or white presenting, that you have an inherent privilege. You're afforded certain benefits of the doubt that not everyone gets. It's the difference from a white person walking into a store and a customer salesperson walking up and saying, "Hi, can we help you find something today?" To a black person walking in that same store with that same customer service person following them around because they looked kind of suspicious. It's the black family that can't leave their family photos hanging on the wall when they're selling their house because the home appraiser might undervalue their house by as much as $500,000. And for fuck's sakes, you've never had to apologize for being white. Had your parents fucked on a Tuesday instead of a Wednesday, you wouldn't even be you. Rather, just acknowledge that the system that was designed by and for people that look like you has never been a level playing field. I hope this made it clear.
I'm Vic Myers. Welcome to the Resistance. I've been trying for a while now to figure out how to talk about something that's been on my mind, and recent events, I think, finally pushed it up. What I want to say is that racism is a white people problem. A white people problem that others are forced to live with. As a white man, I've never had to be afraid of being pulled over by the cops. As a white father, I've never had to have that special talk with my kids about not looking wrong or saying the wrong thing to a cop for fear that they wouldn't come home again. I've never had to worry about being turned down for a mortgage because of the color of my skin or where to go jogging. Never had to worry that I could be scooped up by ICE just for looking like I might belong to the wrong group, even though I was born here. I've never committed the misdemeanor crime of selling cigarettes. But if I did, it wouldn't be a capital offense. These are things that people of color have to deal with every stinking day. These are things that white people allow, that white people cause. I think I'm finally ready to talk about it now because of the state that our country's in, the permission that Donald Trump has given for racist behavior, and the hope I recently felt when I saw the latest poll numbers. For reasons that never made sense to me, Donald Trump has gained support in nearly every demographic when he won his last election, including non-white communities. But now, recent polling suggests that just about everybody is finally seeing him for what he is. They're seeing his racism, and the racism emanating from this administration like stink from a skunk. And they're saying it's not okay. He's lost everything that he gained, and then some, among all these groups. Well, every group except one. That one group is white, non-college educated men, the last stronghold of Trump's race-based politics. Polling indicates that a majority of this group is still standing solidly behind Trump and his policies. Unfortunately for them, they're not going to be any better off under Trump's policies than anybody else. Maybe one day they'll realize that their racism isn't worth what they're losing. And maybe the rest of us will realize something too, that racism is a white people problem, and it's up to white people to solve it. It's up to white people to call it out among their coworkers, their friends, and their family. It's up to white people to be the loudest and proclaim that racism is no longer acceptable in American institutions. It's up to white people to make sure that we're not voting for the racists. Thanks for listening.
There's a moment when you hear something you've believed for years, and then one day you stop and ask yourself, is that actually the truth? That question is at the center of a conversation in America, which has been going on for generations. You see, for a time, Black Americans were often blamed for problems that were much more complicated than individual choices. If a neighborhood was struggling, people sometimes blamed the people living over there. If poverty continued, the conversation could quickly become about responsibility. If crime was high, people often focused on the behavior of the individuals without asking what had happened to those communities before they ever reached that point. When you actually go back and look at American history, the picture becomes much more complicated. There were periods when Black Americans were legally excluded from opportunities that white Americans could access. Segregation restricted where Black people could live, attend school, work, and conduct their lives. Black Americans were also subjected to voting practices and other barriers that limited political participation. Housing is one of the clearest examples, my love. During the century, discriminatory housing practices made it much harder for Black families to purchase homes in certain neighborhoods. Redlining and discriminatory practices helped to determine which communities received investment and which ones were neglected. That matters because a house is not simply a place where somebody sleeps. For millions of families, Home ownership became one of the major ways wealth was built and passed from one generation to another. So imagine two families living in the country. One family has the opportunity to buy a home in an area that later becomes extremely valuable. Their children inherit that property or benefit from the wealth created by it. Another family is denied opportunities because of discriminatory policies or even practices. Decades later, someone looks at both families and says, why doesn't the second family have the wealth? You see that question? It can't even be answered honestly without looking at what really happened before. This is where the conversation becomes much more uncomfortable, because sometimes people inherit the consequences of history without being taught the full history behind those consequences. And that doesn't mean every white American personally created those circumstances, my loves. And someone born today didn't create slavery, they didn't write segregation laws, they didn't design housing policies from decades ago. Acknowledging, my loves, that those things happened is not the same as blaming every white person for them. There's a difference between guilt and historical responsibility. You can say this system existed and it had consequences without saying every person from this group is personally responsible. That distinction matters, because otherwise the conversation becomes about attacking people of understanding the problem, my loves. That's not what this is supposed to be about. The bigger question is whether Americans are willing to look at the past without trying to make it comfortable. Because American history isn't a story of individual success or even failure. It's also a story of laws, institutions, economic opportunities, political decisions, and circumstances that shaped what choices were available to people. When you understand that, certain arguments begin to sound much less convincing. For example, saying everybody had the opportunity, it ignores the fact that opportunity has not always been distributed equally. If two people are standing at a starting line but one person has been held back for miles, you can't simply look at the final distance and pretend they started all in the same place. That doesn't mean the person who started ahead personally caused the person's situation also, my love. It means the starting conditions were so different. And that is an important part of understanding racial inequality in America. You can also see why some people react strongly when they learn details of history they hadn't previously understood. Someone might grow up hearing that certain communities were simply neighborhoods. Then they learn about segregation, discriminatory housing practices, unequal investment, and the history behind those communities. Suddenly, the question changes. Huh? And they start asking, what's wrong with these people? They might start asking, what really happened over here? And honestly, that is a much more useful question, because asking what happened doesn't require hatred, my loves. It doesn't require blaming people for their mistakes. It doesn't require pretending that Black Americans have never made mistakes, or that every problem affecting communities has a single explanation. Real history is rarely that simple. Black communities, like every other community, contain millions of different people with different experiences, decisions, failures, and circumstances. And individual choices don't erase the impact of larger systems. Larger systems don't erase individual responsibility either. Both things can be true at the time, my love. That is why this conversation deserves more than slogans. I want us to keep the conversation on going down below. Let me know what your thoughts are about this video, and if you haven't subscribed, make sure you hit the subscription button. Thank you so much. One love.